Kevin Roth here of Rotogrinders, and today we're going to talk about the RG Discord. If you're not a member, you should be. It is a fantastic community and resource that Rotogrinders provides, and it's easy to join as well. All you have to do is click the Discord icon on Rotogrinders or go to rotogrinders.com/Discord. From there, you'll either sign up if you're new to RG, or if you're already a member, just click the link at the top to go to the sign-in page. Once you've logged into your RG account, you can be taken to Discord to log in there. Once you've connected those accounts, you won't have to leave the server. You can freely close out and reopen Discord without ever having to reconnect. The idea of Discord might be a little bit daunting to you, but it's actually pretty simple to navigate. Whether you're on mobile or desktop, the far left side will show you the Discord servers that you've already joined. Then next to that, you'll see the channels within that Discord. We have both free channels like Chiefs Prop Shop and our daily sport channels. And we also have premium channels like Blender's Game Theory or the Crunch Time channels. Premium members can see the difference between the free and premium channels by looking for a padlock icon next to the premium channel names. We also have a few pointers for new and experienced users alike. If you're having trouble finding a channel, make sure that you haven't collapsed the section that the channel is in. Collapsing a channel will only allow it to appear when there are unread messages in that channel. Also, we find that using the actual Discord program works better than opening it in a browser like Safari or Chrome. Lastly, if you're having trouble with one of our tools, your Rotogrinders account, or any other technical needs, you can hop in our feedback and help section of channels to get help from one of our wonderful support and moderation team members. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out on Twitter @Rotogrinders or email support@rotogrinders.com. See you in Discord.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to NHL Grinders Live Edition. Just for you guys that are out there that may be new and seeing the NHL product, getting some shows going on here, you can tune in live or catch us afterwards for a full breakdown of the hockey slates. The current plan is we're going to be doing them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right around 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to catch them live, that's when we'll be having them throughout the rest of the regular season. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will be able to answer those questions as we go throughout the show. So for those of you who are looking forward to some additional hockey content and shows, make sure you check those out. So I am your host, Sean, PSU Fans 2 Newsham. Joining me is Timothy Buell. Timothy, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Sean? We got a big 13 game slate today, so we don't, can't waste a lot of time because there's a lot of things going on today.
Exactly. Yeah, we were just talking off screen. I think 13 is generally too big. I think the good range is like 6 to 8. That's usually like the wheelhouse. So yeah, we're just going to jump right into it today because, like we said, we have 13 games to break down. We'll try to keep it a little bit short for you. So the first game we have tonight is going to be Chicago at Boston. We don't have tons of important news in this game in terms of injuries or COVID related. The only thing that is of note is Matt Grzelcyk will be out for Boston tonight due to sickness. So what do you think on this first game of the slate here, Tim? What's your thoughts with Chicago to start it off?
Just since due to the slate size, I think the only viable play for me is going to be possibly a one-off of Patrick Kane, but that's only if you're making a lot of teams and you happen to lay on that price point. Chicago, I believe they have like a 2.1 implied total, so they're pretty much completely off the board for me.
Yeah, and that's so those of you guys that are new to hockey or maybe just checking out a show to see if it's of interest. Hockey is much different than sports like NFL and NBA, where you are going to see players severely low owned, even if they are elite level players in the league. So you have a team like Chicago being a major underdog in this game. They're plus 234 currently. You're going to find players on that team be really under owned. However, when you look at the slate as a whole, we have 13 games. Their current total is around like 2.3 goals, give or take. The range is always going to be within a goal or goal and a half, from literally the worst team on the slate to the top. So it's realistic to get expectations that those guys can produce. So on the other side, we have the Bruins. They come in with a applied team total currently of 3.56 and are one of the biggest favorites on the slate. Do you like anything on the Boston side at all?
For me, this would just be a Boston 1 or a power play 1 situation, if that's what you want to go with. This team has a massive ceiling. They're still a little bit underpriced to what we're used to them being. However, they're not playing as big of minutes as they were at the beginning of the year. They're not getting that north of 20 to 21 minutes that we'd like to see. They're kind of in that 17 to 18 range, which in hockey is actually it's a big amount. I think on the cheap end, you could go Forbert, who's min price. But if you're power play stacking, then it's Charlie McAvoy on the blue line.
Yeah, and it's something to note as well. I feel like Boston, especially with those guys, like you talked about their minutes being under the 20-minute mark with like Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand. This feels like the first year in a long time where those guys are seeing minutes around those numbers. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And then one other player is Craig Smith, who's just been on fire, but he's not, that's not like a cash game, double up type play. That's definitely like a large field GPP play. So if you're making multiple teams, you could sprinkle in a little bit of like maybe the Boston power play 2 with DeBrusk and Smith. And DeBrusk also gets time on line 1 with Bergeron and Marchand.
For sure. All right, next game we have the Vegas Golden Knights versus the best team in the NHL, the Buffalo Sabres. So I think the first thing that we will talk about here is a little bit of revenge factor. Tim, would you agree that Jack Eichel most likely despises the Sabres organization and just wants to go out there and showcase and just destroy them tonight?
So I write a sports betting article for scoresandodds.com every Tuesday and Thursday, and I wrote up Jack Eichel over 3.5 shots at plus 105. That's available on DK Sportsbook. I think he's going to try to put on a show tonight, and that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to score a goal or put up the 3-point bonus, but he's going to be firing on net. I can assure you of that. And he is take the narrative out of it. He's still under 7K on DK. This guy, we used to pay 8K for him. So, I mean, he's for his skill set, he's still far too cheap.
Yeah, and for those of you guys that are just wondering about what Tim was talking about, Scores and Odds, Scores and Odds is the #1 place to find all things sports betting. So if you're into the sports betting side of things, make sure you check Scores and Odds, whether it's expert picks, analysis, or cutting edge tools. We give you the advantage to become a better sports bettor. So make sure you check out the scoresandodds.com today for more info on that. And funnily enough, Tim, I actually wrote up the same bet without knowing you wrote that up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wrote up Eichel over. I think I actually saw it at plus 110.
Yeah.
But realistically speaking, from a sports betting standpoint, we'll give you guys this bonus as well. So Eichel's expected shots tonight, or his over-under in shots right now on DraftKings Sportsbook is 3.5. He has 4, 4, 5, 4, 4, and 9 shots in his last 6 games. So you're getting plus money for him to eclipse the number that he's done in all of the last 6 games against a very poor Buffalo team who he despises. I think there is a good merit for that. And also, I know you talked about he might not score, he might not get the bonus. I think any bets involving Eichel and overs tonight are profitable bets or are solid bets, because I think he's really going to have a chip on his shoulder. I really think they're just going to plow him, and he's going to probably play. Like last game, he played 20 minutes against Philly. I think you could see him in the 20 to 22-minute mark tonight and just really want to showcase. So anyways, from a DFS side of things, Vegas is 194. They have an implied total around 3.6. Do you like anyone outside of Eichel on that team as well?
So we should just pay attention to who's going to be skating on that top line, because in practice, Marchand and Pacioretty were skating with Eichel, but it's probably going to be Roy that skates with them. So, I mean, that's just something to pay attention to. But I think it's mostly just Eichel and Pacioretty for me.
For sure. All right. And then on the other side of the ice with the Buffalo Sabres, I'm going to assume you're just locking all of them in every lineup and calling it a day. But let's see if you have anything different from that.
I am going to be X-buttoning everybody on the Sabres today.
I guess that's one way to lock them in, huh?
Yep, that's how I'm going to lock them in.
So, yeah, Sabres are one of the bigger underdogs on the slate despite being on the home ice tonight. So, definitely understandable from that perspective. All right, next game, we have Arizona at the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I know this is something you want to talk about. We don't normally talk about goaltenders. We will likely not talk about goaltenders that often. But why don't you talk a little bit about Peter Marazic's price tag on the slate on DraftKings?
So I've never seen goalies as expensive as I've seen today. And normally I wouldn't just say don't play somebody, but do not play Peter Marazzic tonight. Even if he gets you the win and a shutout and say 23 saves on this Coyotes team, he might not be in the optimal lineup. And he's just so expensive. It takes away so much of your salary cap. He's gonna have to hit real perfect to pay off that tag. So he's another guy that I would strongly recommend that you X out of your player pool.
For sure. And that is something that for those of you guys looking at making GPP lineups and MME lineups, it is difficult for a goaltender to end up in optimal lineups when they don't face a lot of shots. So typically speaking, a massive favorite goalie, their only option to hit an optimal is generally if they have a 23 save shutout. And it's not even necessary that they hit the optimal in that situation because it's very likely someone else on the slate had a better game. So that is something to note from a GPP perspective. So with Arizona, I'm assuming that you are giving them the same treatment as the Buffalo Sabres and not really utilizing much on their team.
I would rather play Clayton Keller or maybe Nick Schmaltz than anybody for the Sabres, but that's not saying a whole lot. I'm not saying you should because they are a little priced up and higher than they normally are because they've had such big games in the last week or so. So they're a little bit more expensive than they should be. But on the same token, the Maple Leafs defensively are dreadful. So you might get some points out of that top line for the Coyotes.
Yeah, and even with them being such a massive underdog, like you talked about, their expected team total is still around 2.5 goals for Arizona, which is higher than some other teams on the slate, especially. But as you alluded to, they have been on a little bit of a tear recently. I know we had talked about them last week with Clayton Keller and guys like that, and they're priced up to match that. All right, on the Toronto side of the ice, for me, Austin Matthews is the top play on the slate. And I know looking through quite a bit of other things within the expert survey, that seemed to be a trend among most of the Rotogrinders experts. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you're getting with Matthews and the stacking potential within Toronto?
Yeah, so the top stack of the day is Matthews, Marner, and Bunting. That's definitely your top even strength line. If you wanted to get a little bit different, you could stack maybe the power play because the Leafs power play I think there might be number 1 in the league. So that's definitely a viable strategy also. I'd probably gonna stay away from line 2. And then your one-off play would probably be Nylander. Maybe do a contrarian stack of like Matthews, Nylander, and maybe Riley for power play. That would be a contrarian way to go about the Leafs. Other than that, that's it for me. I'm not going to play any of the cheap blue liners for the Leafs.
For sure. All right, next game on the slate tonight, we have the Colorado Avalanche at the Carolina Hurricanes. This one comes in a bit of a coin flip. They're pretty dead even in terms of betting odds, despite the game being in Carolina. Both the implied totals are relatively high in this game, however. So what is your thoughts first on the Colorado side of the ice with Samuel Girard missing the game tonight? I think we could see a situation where they rely on Cale Makar a bit more than usual. Do you see it as well with that?
Yeah, I think the Avalanche are a tremendous contrarian play if you want to fade the higher owned Leafs. They're obviously not in as good a spot. But that line with McKinnon and Rantanen, they're just as good as anybody else. Ranta, I prefer Anderson over Ranta, but this is, you could definitely stack the Colorado power play. I think Carolina takes quite a few penalties, so that would lead them to be, out there, that power play to be out there quite a bit more.
For sure. All right. And then on the other side of the ice, is there anything that you like within the Carolina side of things? They seem to be quite priced up compared to what you're getting. Like you see a guy like Aho averages only about 12.5 points per game compared to that of someone like Austin Matthews.
Yeah, this game to me is just kind of a wild card game. I mean, both sides are very, very expensive, and they're just not in the best spots. Are they extremely talented? Yes. Could they break the slate? Yes. If I was making multiple teams, if I was making 20 max, I'd probably put them in like 2. And you'd probably be over the field. But I wouldn't get too carried away with this team.
For sure. All right. Next game, we have Seattle at the Ottawa Senators. So from the Seattle side of things, I'm not seeing much that I like due to what they've produced on the course of the season. Do you see anything that would indicate anyone tonight that might make a little bit of sense?
I'm kind of a sucker for Jared McCann. And of course, Jordan Everly's on there too, with him on the top line and top power play. So it's just a cheap kind of correlated piece in a decent matchup. Yeah, Seattle doesn't create a lot of high danger chances. They're not a high pace team, but you could throw Shorts into the mix and do a little cheap power play stack that you can use this team as a filler with more expensive plays like the Leafs.
For sure. All right. If we go to the next game, we're going to look at the Philadelphia Flyers versus the Florida Panthers. This is the biggest favorite on the slate at this moment, with Florida coming in minus 381. They are one of the teams with above a 4-goal implied total along the lines of Toronto. So this team comes in tonight, and we have a team that has pretty much the same exact total that the Toronto Maple Leafs will have. I think they're going to be underowned compared to that of what Toronto will be. Do you see this as a spot where maybe you can fire them in GPPs?
Yeah, this is another contrarian piece that you can get off the Leafs with. My preference would be Florida 2. 2/3 of it correlates on the top power play. And then, of course, Sam Bennett's on power play 2. I'm kind of a, fan of Sam Bennett. I love Anthony Duclair and Huberdeau. So they would be my preferred line for the Panthers. But of course, you could go to line 1. You could do like a Barkov, Ekblad power play stack. I'm not normally a fan of Ekblad, but I think that this is a tremendous spot. The Flyers have a horrible penalty kill. So this could be a really big spot for the Florida power play.
For sure. All right. And then anything on the Philadelphia side that you like at all?
I'm just going to throw this out there. It's going to be probably an egregious take, but you could play Hart as a goalie in GPPs because he's going to get absolutely peppered with shots in this game. So, I mean, this could be one of those situations where he gives up 4 or 5 goals, but gets 45 saves. And at 6,600, that's going to pay off. I think he's a better play than Marazzic for the Leafs. I'd much rather have Hart in my lineup.
And for those that are sort of looking to fire GPPs and go about things a bit differently, nobody will have bigger upside typically than the biggest underdog of the slate. So if you're looking at the last game that Carter Hart played, he gave up 1 goal. His team won 2-1, and he faced 48 shots. So that resulted in a 47 save win and 38.5 points on DraftKings. Yes, you're going to have games where he does not produce because he ends up getting a loss and gives up 3 or 4 goals. But you look through his log, and there are plenty of games where he's having 35 to 40 saves and getting the win. So he had a game against Washington where he got the win. They didn't give up as many saves. He had a game against Winnipeg earlier in February where he had a 32 save win. And he had a few other games like that. So the upside Carter Hart provides really is tremendous.
If you're making 20 teams, you could put him in 2 and you'd be over the field.
For sure.
You know,
And I think for the record, the same thing realistically goes for Scott Wedgwood in Arizona. Like if Arizona is going to get a result, which is unlikely, obviously, but not outside the realm of possibility. If he gets a win, he's probably looking at 30, 35 points, which is very strong.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So for sure, in GPP perspective, you guys got to be on the lookout for that. All right. Next game, we have Minnesota against Detroit. Minnesota comes in as a pretty decent favorite despite being on the road here. However, Detroit does have a decent team total in this game as well. So from the Minnesota side of things, what can you pull out to talk about in this one?
I mean, and such a huge slate, you have to make cuts somewhere. And of course, they're in, lines 1 and 2 for Minnesota are in tremendous spots. But I think this might be kind of my fade because the team is so deep and can score from so many, different lines. I'm hoping that they can keep the scoring kind of spread out in this game. And I would, if you have to, obviously, I think Kevin Fiala is always a good play and has a tremendous shot floor. But I think I'm gonna take like an underweight stance on this team.
For sure. All right, and then on the Detroit side of things, we saw Jakob Voracek make his season debut the other day, and he was able to score in his debut and put up a strong 15-point performance as well. So do you like anything on the Detroit side? I know Dylan Larkin is obviously the standout for them typically. Anything else that you could pull from them?
Now that Vrana's above them in price at 4K, I think that I'm going to stay away from this team today. This game for me, if this game beats me, so be it. Obviously, there are pieces that you could play from it, but I don't want any goaltenders in it. And I certainly don't want any Red Wings.
For sure. All right, next game, we have Winnipeg at New Jersey. Big total in this game, expected to be lots of goals. So first thing I would like to point out in this game is that I was talking with Dane Forden, Moneyball 16, who handles a lot of our NHL projections earlier. We were talking. Did you know, Tim, that pretty much the best player in the league right now is Jesper Bratt?
He's been on fire this season. I've rostered him quite a bit, and it's been profitable for me.
Did you know that he has the most 5-on-5 expected goals per 60 minutes in the entire NHL over Connor McDavid?
I did not know that.
Yep, he's averaging 3.62 5v5 on ice expected goals per 60 minutes. McDavid's averaging just below that. So Bratt has 34 points in 676 minutes at 5v5 this year, and McDavid has 35 in 931 minutes. It's been pretty incredible how good Bratt's been this far this season. But the reason I want to talk about Jesper Bratt isn't even necessarily to talk about Jesper Bratt. It's more so to talk about the fact that Nico Hischier is going to be out this game, and we're going to see Pavel Zacha play with Jesper Bratt. And there's a big metric, I've seen some graphs as well, that showcases what all of the New Jersey forwards and players have done when skating with Bratt compared to against, and everyone is tremendously better this year when playing with Bratt. So anyways, Zacha comes in as one of my favorite value plays of the slate at 3,100 and should get his time with Bratt. Do you like the Zacha call in this game?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the reasons why I didn't really want many pieces from the Wild Red Wings game, because this game on both sides is priced pretty similarly, and this is a way better spot. So that line 2 for New Jersey is a tremendous play. Both Bratt and Zacha get correlation on the power play. Hellebuyck's not in net tonight, so the Jets are starting their backup goalie. I also really like Kyle Connor. I've rostered him quite a bit this year, and he's just a superstar, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves, but either in the pricing market or just in the general fan market. So both Connor and Dubois are fantastic plays today.
Yeah, so like with this game, you're looking at like a 6.75 total, and you're looking at like 3.25, 3.5 goals for each team. So it's a really good spot to have some goals in it, which
the Devils goaltending has just been awful lately. I mean, they're just giving up so many goals lately, and it's just, I think this is going to be a shootout
for sure. All right, next game we have the Columbus Blue Jackets versus the New York Islanders. So is there anything on the Blue Jackets that you like? They come in as a big underdog here at New York.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a very good spot. I mean, you can always play Line because he's such a good goal scorer, but this is just not the matchup that I want to play him in. For the most part, this game is going to be a cross off for me. I'm not sure, is Dobson in or out? Do you know any news about Dobson? Because that could bring in a little bit of value on the blue line, but they've priced up these guys quite a bit. So maybe if Dobson's out, you could play like a guy like Scott Mayfield, because even Pulak is 5.1, which is pretty pricey for him. I would like to be able to get to some Islanders because the Blue Jackets defense is really, really bad, but I don't know who that would be.
Yeah, and it's a struggle when you're looking at guys that are like, no one's really produced thus far this year on the Islanders. You look through the teams, and generally speaking, you can look through the teams and see what teams have produced some points and which teams have not. And the Islanders have two guys over 10 points per game on the season, and that's Dobson and Nelson. So you don't have tons of high-powered options. For Columbus, the one person I've always liked, someone that I think is a reasonable value punt at least, is Jakob Voracek. His minutes have been good. He's generally a guy that will take some shots, and he's 3,500. He's a guy that can generally get you a goal in a cheap price point. Nothing, generally speaking, when you go down to like the 3 to 3,500 range, you're not like, sometimes you'll be in love with a player. It does happen, but a lot of the time you're just like, this guy has a chance to get a goal on the board, will probably take 3 or 4 shots on the game, and that's all you can hope for.
Yeah, and he skates with a guy who I like quite a bit, and Bjorkstrand. So, and they both get time on the power play. So I think that's a nice little 2-man there.
For sure. All right, next game we have the New York Rangers against the St. Louis Blues. Pretty much an even game here, a relatively low total, and you talked about a goalie in this one as well before we came on the show. So why don't you talk a little bit about the Rangers and Igor Shasturkin tonight?
Yeah, Igor Shasturkin is 7.3K on DK, and that is just an egregious price tag. He isn't going to get a lot of volume in this game, but the Blues aren't exactly a powerhouse offensive team. And, you know, if he gets 28 saves, 30 saves, and gets you the win, you are going to be in a good place with your teams, given his price tag. I bet the under in this game. I think this is going to be a pretty low event game. The Rangers are not a very good 5-on-5 team. But that price for Shasturkin is, I think you have to play him in cash games.
Yeah, and I think that this game is the lowest total game out of 13. There's not expected to be many goals in this game compared to others. Now, that said, obviously the range isn't wide between that game and literally every other game. But if you're playing 7,300 and you have a pretty realistic shot at a shutout, that will generally be speaking a good option. All right, on the St. Louis side of things, Pavel Buchnevich will not play on Thursday. So that does take a little bit away from that of the Blues. And obviously with you playing Shasturkin in net, is there anything that you really like on the St. Louis side?
I would perhaps maybe one off David Perron. That first line is fully correlated. It's pretty cheap, but I'm obviously not going to get too carried away with the Blues tonight.
For sure. All right, next game we have the Anaheim Ducks versus the Nashville Predators. It comes in with Anaheim plus 163, Nashville minus 182. Total's about 5.6, give or take. So is there anything that you like from the Anaheim side of things in this game?
If we assume that Getzlaf is out again, then Trevor Zegras is another shot prop that I bet. over 2.5 at plus 130 on DK. He's been playing top line minutes, top power play. He's been skating with Raquel. That's a cheap little 2-man that you could do. I think the defensemen for Anaheim are pretty expensive, and this is not really a good spot. This game does not really thrill me. I do like, if you want to pay up for a goalie and because you're concerned about not getting the win, I would definitely pay it for Saros.
For sure. Yeah, just to confirm on Getzlaf, he will be out Thursday. They placed him on the IR. So
okay, yeah.
There's the answer that we're looking for on Getzlaf for that game. All right, then on the Nashville side of things, you have Roman Josi, who comes in at a massive 7,800 price tag. And their team's actually really weird. You have basically him, Josi, and Duchesne. Everyone else is sub 4K, literally everyone else on the team. So is there anyone else on Nashville that you think is viable, or is it pretty much just those guys that are expensive?
I think it's really just those guys that are expensive. I mean, you're basically gonna have to get lucky for those depth forwards to score. And yes, of course they could, but there's nobody there that I would recommend playing.
For sure. All right, next game, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning at the Calgary Flames. Relatively even game here as well on the road. You have some super high-priced people like Kucherov, Point, Stamkos, and and Victor Hedman, and they're going to be incredibly low owned compared to what you would normally see from the Lightning. Do you see this as a spot where they could possibly be GPP viable, or do you like anyone else on the Lightning?
I mean, I have so much respect for the Flames as a whole. I mean, of course, Kucherov can break any slate. He's a superstar player. But Calgary's a really good defensive squad, and it's not like this Lightning team is cheap. So, I mean, I think they're a pass for me. It wouldn't be the worst play to make, but I'm not going to have any. My interest would be more Vasilevsky, goalie, 7,800. I mean, he used to be the best goalie in hockey. He's not had the best year, but he is definitely, too cheap given a $7,800 price tag. He's so much better than the goalies that are priced up in the 8s today.
For sure. All right. And then on the Calgary side of things, is there anything you like? I know there was some talk about Tyler Toffoli being one of the better, cheaper options on the slate. Do you agree with that, or are you not really on Toffoli tonight?
I don't really like the matchup today. I think this game is going to be like a tight checking, kind of like defensive type matchup. And both goalies are solid. I don't think this game is going to have the ceiling that you're going to need in a 13-game slate.
For sure. All right, then we move on to the last game of the slate. We have the San Jose Sharks versus the LA Kings. The Kings are minus 179 here. They are a decent favorite in this game. Do you like anyone on them? I see some value out there on their team, and then you have the likes of Drew Doughty, Victor Arvidsson, who will not be playing in this game. So what do you think on the Kings tonight?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a really good late night hammer for value plays. It's not going to be your late night hammer for your studs. I would definitely leave some roster spots open. Make sure you're paying attention to line combinations as the night goes on. I'm not sure who's going to be skating with Kopitar. Is it going to be Kaliev?
As of now, it's Kaliev, but
I mean, he's a really good value play for min price on DK. I mean, if you're looking to pay for Matthews, you're gonna need somebody like him, or like a Dustin Brown, something like that. These are really, really good value pieces for your lineups.
For sure. All right. And then on the San Jose side of things, it looks like Jacob Middleton is going to be a game time decision for the Sharks in that game. Is there anything that you like on the San Jose side of things?
I mean, this team is just dreadful. I mean, they've they've really fallen apart. I mean, you can always play Brent Burns, but I mean, he's kind of dust now. I mean, I hate to say it because I really like him, but Timo Meier has a tremendous ceiling shot floor, but he's priced up at 7,900. Like, that's a little too pricey for this slate. I mean, this is just not. I'm not going to be jumping, to play anyone from the Sharks.
For sure. When they brought in Erik Karlsson a few years ago, did you think they were just going to smash the league?
I didn't know if they were going to smash the league. I didn't think that they were going to be a basement dweller, though. I mean, I thought they'd be like a 3-4 seed type team, not like last place.
But yeah, so that is going to wrap up all of the games tonight. So let's do a little quick recap and go over any players that we may not have missed. Is there any other value plays on the slate overall that you think have gone overlooked that maybe we haven't talked about as much so far today?
I do remember one thing that I wanted to mention for the Knights. Don't forget about Shea Theodore. He hasn't had like a huge ceiling game lately, but he plays big minutes. He's the anchor on the power play. So, I mean, he's definitely somebody that I didn't mention that I should have. Let me see. There's some other cheap devils that we could talk about, like Thomas Tatar. I think it's going to be up on that second line. He doesn't get first power play, but he's going to be playing, I think, with Bratt and Zacha at even strength. So don't forget about him for somebody who's super cheap. I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely, like we talked about with Kuliev, you definitely have to make sure you're on the lookout to see where he's going to be playing. But at 2,500, that seems to be one of those 2,500 plays that could be really strong on the slate as well. Some of the other people that were talked about in the expert survey was, we talked about Pavel Zacha as well. Like, I really think that he's such a strong play tonight at the center position. And then people were talking a little bit more about Jack Eichel as well. I can't reiterate enough how good of a spot it is for Eichel and how much he's likely to be ready to just give it to the Sabres and just pound them tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm making one of the biggest, sport prop bets I've ever made on that over 3.5. So, I mean, I'm definitely going to be watching that game for multiple reasons. I'm pretty excited for that one.
For sure. All right. Is there anything else is there any super good GPP plays that you think are going under the radar, whether it be stacks or individual plays that maybe we didn't talk about?
Trying to think. I think trying to get to like more of the expensive Panther pieces like Barkov and Ekblad, because I don't think that they're going to be that high owned, because the opportunity cost at center is really high. So, I mean, obviously people are, first thing they're going to do is stick in Matthews, and then it's going to be like, oh, do I play McKinnon? Or do I play somebody cheaper? And I think that Barkov might be a forgotten piece. So don't forget about him.
For sure. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap it up for us then today. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we will be having a hockey show every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So make sure, if you are interested in getting some additional hockey content, you check those out. Is there anything else you want to add here before we wrap it up, Tim?
Nope. Thanks, John.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Good luck to you guys tonight. Hopefully one of you can win one of the big GPPs out there. For Tim, I'm Sean. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you later.